how do you look at national politics? What are your thoughts on our current situation?
I think it's the worst it's ever been. I think 40 years in the EU has ruined British politics, and it's going to take a decade or two for us to get back to having a decent quality level of politicians in the UK. We've not needed leaders in the UK now for 40 years. And you think, why? Well, leaders make choices. We couldn't make choices when we were in the EU. All we did was implement foreign laws and directives. So we needed middle managers. That's all our politicians are at the moment, middle managers implementing what they're told to implement. There's no leaders. Um, the Tories are absolute shambles, absolute shambles. Half the people, half the MPs who are Tories wouldn't have been Tories 20, 30 years ago. They'd have been Blairites. The Tory party, there's nothing conservative about the Tory party whatsoever. Absolute disgrace. And then when you look at Labour, another absolute disgrace. Don't care about the working person, don't care about the working class. They bought into identity politics. Um, they're going to be, they'll be worse than the Tories in power. But do you know what? That'll be a blessing. I actually want Labour to win the next election because that will force the Tories into opposition and spend 5 years soul searching. And maybe then some leaders may emerge. Maybe then they'll get some decent policies and stop this Blairite agenda they always seem to be pushing. Then you look at some of the other parties. The Lib Dems are mental. The Greens need the Greens are as if they've escaped from a lunatic asylum.
Mhm.
Um, I like all the small parties. I like Reform. I like Reclaim. I like the Heritage Party. I like the SDP. All these parties have something to offer. I don't agree with all of them on all their policies, but even the policies I don't agree with, I can understand where they're coming from with those policies, and they're sensible where they come from to create those policies. So all those small parties, I'm 100% behind. So I tell people, vote for the small parties.
The one thing I find with these small parties is because you have a number of small parties who are sort of outside the usual realm of the two-party system or three-party system, depending on how you look at it, that we have, is a good deal less useful than if they were working together. Now, I understand this is a bit of a tired
Yeah.
point of conversation because people always talk about these parties working together, and for whatever reason, this isn't possible or likely. But in the event of, for example, proportional representation being introduced, if that were to ever happen, then we could be in a situation where smaller parties with support could then work together post-election to create coalitions that will form governments.
Yeah. 2 points there. So small parties and our first past the post system. So small parties will not join together because they're individual parties with individual leaders. And to be a leader of a political party, you have to have a certain type of character, and that character isn't sharing power, sharing leadership. And that just goes with being a leader. To make a difference, the small parties don't have to join together. They should work together and cooperate, such as we're going to stand an MP here, so please don't stand one, and then you tell us where you're going to stand one, and we won't stand there. That makes perfect sense, but joining together doesn't. Um, then our first past the post system, I'm not convinced on PR. Even though our system at the moment and our politics is absolute dire at the moment, it's served us well over hundreds and hundreds of years. We would be very brave or very foolish to start tweaking with our political system, not knowing how it's going to work out. This is a blip in time at the moment with what we've got. It will sort itself out. Parliament will sort itself out. New leaders will come to the fore. Do we need to start a new system that gives outsiders and small fringes more power than they deserve? I would say probably not. Those small parties can have an influence. I mean, the biggest influence any party's had recently is UKIP.
Hmm.
UKIP had one MP and forced a referendum that made us leave the EU. So small parties can have an influence. What they need to do is scare parties, and then parties then will steal their policies. So, the Tories stole the UKIP policy of a referendum because they were losing votes and were scared of not winning the next election. That's how you change the major parties, because all politicians ever want is votes. They don't care. Most politicians don't care about any of the policies they're implementing. They don't care about the future of the country. Their job as a career politician is to stay a career politician. They only care about votes. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory type of way. I'm saying that in a factual, common sense type of way. You need to understand the beast if you're going to tame or control the beast. Politicians want votes. So let's make sure they do as they're told by tempting them with votes. That's why they will do the policies they think people will vote for. It's up to the small parties to be more along the lines of pressure groups, to pressure Labour, Tories, Lib Dems to steal their policies and implement them. And for my election as mayor, let's say I come second or third, I want the Tory party or any other party saying to themselves, did you see what that nobody in Greater Manchester achieved? That one-man band with no money, he got 25% of the vote. He didn't win, but what could we do if we took his policies? Because they're obviously popular. I would take that as a win, because I don't want necessarily to be a politician. I don't want a pat on the back. I don't want to be congratulated. I just want my country to be better. And if I've got the right policies, then I'll say it now. Anyone's entitled to have my policies and take them. It's free. They're like open source software. Just take them. I don't mind. I just want my country better.
I fear that might be a danger that, when we talk about policies, that's not necessarily actions, is it? So somebody's policies, something that they say they'll do, or even if they see in the polls that the electorate like a particular policy that another party or another person has, and they adopt that just because they say it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that they're going to follow through with.
No, absolutely. And that comes down to the old Arabic saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Why does anyone at the moment believe the Tory party is going to get a grip on immigration? They tell us every 18 months, we're going to get a grip on this. They've been in power 13 years. And the people keep falling for it. It's shame on the people for being idiots, for keep voting for the same party who keep telling you what you want to hear and delivering nothing. So stealing my policies is fine, take them, and then you may win an election with those policies. But then if you don't do anything about those policies, then the people should have learned a lesson and not vote for you again, no matter what you promise. Because once you break your promise, any other promise you make after that is worthless. We should be men and women of our word.